Please join me in welcoming our opening keynote, Alex Baldock, Group CEO of Currys plc. Alex will be interviewed by ShopTalk's Head of Content USA, Joe Laszlo.
I'm super pleased to have you be our opening keynote at ShopTalk Europe this year. And we are kind of theming the show around through the looking glass, that retail is kind of going into new worlds, exploring new areas, new opportunities. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus our conversation on today. So rather than just kind of sitting down and talking with you about, Currys' e-commerce business, Currys' physical stores, et cetera, we'll get to some of that in passing. I thought it would be really interesting to start our conversation by talking about your services business. So although you guys are the #1 omni-channel electronics retailer in the UK and the Nordics, the services business is growing really fast. It includes things like financing, repairs, and other sorts of solutions. You have a mobile network in the UK, and retail media, I guess, counts as a service as well. So I guess my first question to kick things off is just kind of how do you think about services as an opportunity for Currys?
Yeah, it's an important question, and maybe take you back to just before I started at this business, and I went to see the most bearish analyst before taking the job, but a good practice, go and see the biggest skeptic, and said to him, why don't you like Currys? And his reply was, well, you sell Apple's products, they're a multi-trillion-dollar company, you've got pretty precious little bargaining power. Those products are infrequently purchased, they are discretionary, they're big ticket, they're available at other retailers, and there's very little differentiation in the product. So the customer's able and incentivized to shop around, and it's very hard to build margins, meaningful loyalty, or the kind of recurring revenues I like. And plus, you've got pretty high fixed costs. So when the cycle turns down, your free cash flow can tend towards zero pretty quickly. That's why I don't like you. To which I said, thank you.
Seems reasonable, but you took the job.
Well, exactly. You might wonder that I did, but I thought it sets our minds to thinking. So how can we build a more secure and lucrative existence than just shifting boxes between Apple and the consumer? And it has to start with the customer, as all of these things need to do. And the customer finds tech, the stuff that we sell, exciting, but confusing and expensive. They need help, not just to choose it, but to afford it and to enjoy it to the full, to get the most out of it through its life. And happily, we had the wherewithal to develop some of those services, which increase revenues at higher margins, build stickiness, and those recurring revenues that the analyst was looking for.
Very, very cool. So as you think about services, how do you prioritize the ones that you know are kind of a natural fit or an extension, and that Currys can get into without it costing a huge amount to just kind of spin up the services business?
Yeah, and I think in these things, you look for the intersection of the Venn diagram, right? What does the customer value, i.e. what do they want, not just what they want, but what they're willing to pay for, and what you're good at. And it's in the middle of those things that you try and play. And so in our case, the stuff that we sell is expensive, so customers needed help affording it, and we could develop a good credit proposition, and we have. And now over 20% of our sales are on our own credit product, which has other benefits too. But the customer needs help getting started with this stuff. They can't put a 85-inch TV on the wall on their own, and they can't master the surround sound. They don't know how to set up a laptop. And we can help them with all of that. But more than that, given it's expensive, and given customers worry about it going wrong, we can protect it and build a big repair business, which you also touched on, and we've now got 14 million repair customers across the group.
It's pretty stunning. Clearly, the main KPI for the services business is it making money? What are the margins like? But are there other KPIs you look at as far as customer satisfaction or other things, and how do you actually measure those for any of the specific services you offer?
I think this is a really interesting example of where purpose and profit can go hand in hand, in fact must go hand in hand. Because you mentioned circularity in your intro, Joe, and sometimes we get asked, well, it's very nice that you're helping protect the planet, but can you make any money doing it? And I think it's critical that we do. So, I mean, even if I were a terrible husband and father and citizen, we would still be prioritizing these services because they play to our competitive strengths and they're what customers value. That's what we look for, those two things. And customers, they do worry about the planet, but particularly in a cost of living crisis, they're concerned about their pocket as well. And if we're repairing, their laptop, we're not just preventing them from having to buy a new one, we're also helping them in their pocket. And it's that, and of course we make good money doing it. Likewise with refurbished products that we sell an increasing amount of. Yeah, it's great for the planet, it's good for the customer, and whisper it, but we make more margin on selling a refurbed iPhone than we do on a new one. So, so it works for our profits too.
Interesting. I definitely want to spend some time talking about the sustainability and circular parts of your business, but just to kind of stay on kind of the broader services portfolio, are there any examples of specific services that you've kind of needed to iterate before they really took off with your customers? Anything that didn't necessarily work out of the gate, but that is working well now?
I mean, none of it's working as well as we want it to. And I mean, yes, our services have become a much more important part of the business, but we're not happy with any of it. I mean, credit, for example, has gone from nothing to 20%. We're nowhere near the ceiling there. And credit's good for customers because it helps them afford this expensive technology. It's good for us because it makes for stickier and more valuable customers. But you asked what a particular area of dissatisfaction, it's online. We are not nearly as good at selling services online as we are in a store because the conversation with an expert colleague is one of the things that enables the sale of services, in fact, critical to it. And we were, frankly, rubbish at selling services online a couple of years back. We've worked very hard to improve.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm not sure anybody is really great at it. It's really hard when you don't have that face-to-face moment with a human being.
It's that, and it's also you have that constant trade-off of not wanting to interrupt the customer's journey towards conversion too much, because you irritate them and you risk lowering that crucial conversion number, versus you want to introduce them to the services that you believe are good for them and of course good for the business. So that's a trade-off that we've had to perilously navigate our way across, and we've made some progress on it by finding ways to stick a colleague in front of a customer even when they're buying from their sofa, whether it's through our video shopping service Shop Live or enticing them back into the store for order and collect, for example, and in some significant improvements to the online UX, but we're nowhere near good on this yet.
Interesting, but adding human touch points, whether it's purely digital or I buy online, pick up in store, makes so much sense to me as far as creating those opportunities. I guess the last thing I wanted to ask about the services business is just a lot of the services you're talking about are pretty competitive. There's buy now, pay later. There's old school credit cards if somebody wants to finance a purchase. There's obviously lots of different places to do repairs. Like, does that mean you need to kind of embark on a whole new marketing journey in order to kind of differentiate and kind of not just tell people you do this, but that you do it better than the competition?
I mean, yes, it does services feature more in our marketing than they used to, but that's not the main thing. I think the main thing is it's situational. So for credit, for example, yes, there are lots of other options out there, and you have to make sure the basics are good. So it's a good value product from a reputable provider. You're trusted by the customer. We're not going around chasing lots of customers on bad debt, which is bad for everybody, because we've made good underwriting decisions up front. All of those basics need to be there. But then you take advantage of what we've got that no other finance provider has, which is we're there with the customer at the very moment they really want that TV. And if you're a half-decent salesperson, you can make something of that. Elsewhere, it's a bit different. Repair, you touched on. There aren't that many other places that you can get a decent quality, accredited by the manufacturer, by the way, repair, and there's nowhere else the customer can get it within 7 days guaranteed, or we give you a new one. Those are due to some of the competitive advantages that we've built. It's been painful, slow, expensive work over the last few years, but we built this now. We've got, for example, the largest repair facility in Europe with over 1,000 colleagues in white coats beavering away, repairing everything from laptops to washing machines. So it's hard work, but you have to make the most of your competitive advantages.
That's amazing. I definitely want to. This is a perfect segue. So let's talk a little bit more about the repair facility. I mean, so many companies, so many electronics retailers that get into repair, begin offering repair services, they just partner with some other shop or a whole bunch of like little small shops to do it. Why was it important to you guys to build your own facility and to like scale it to the size that it is?
Sometimes we partner, so we partner with the bank for the underwriting on the credit, for example. Sometimes we want to do it ourselves, and again, it depends. In this case, we wanted to do it ourselves because nobody else was doing it very well. And a customer does not want to be without their laptop for 28 days, which is what some of the manufacturer warranties and some of the competing, some of the competitors, the best that they could do. We wanted to get it back to the customer within a week, and we want to be able to guarantee that. And to do that, we built our own. And it's, as I say, it's quite painful work building it, but now we've got some scale. And that scale, circularity isn't just a nice thing to do for ESG, for sustainability purposes. Circularity is also a business model, because we built that, with a weight of trade-ins and recycling and repair. We've got so many mobile phones, for example, coming in for repair. We can refurbish them, we can harvest the parts and do the next repair at lower cost. And so it starts to build some nice scale. And now we've built it, we think this is a big source of competitive advantage. And by the way, we're not happy with 7 days either. 20% of our customers in computing are on 7 minutes now, but we can maybe we can come to that.
That's super impressive. Yeah, I've seen press quotes saying something like a 700 million pound, I forgot what country I was in for a second, business for you guys these days. So definitely growing more and more significant as a part of the overall pie.
Yeah, and it needs to get bigger. I mean, because apart from anything else, there's headroom there for us. We've got a quarter of the market on selling products. We've only got 15% share of the market on services, which I think is a scandal. We're very, very self-critical about that internally. We should have a bigger market share on services, given the advantages that we've got, and we're determined to get it.
Yeah. Talk to me a bit more about the repair and refurbished business. I would think that it's sort of a play for millennials and Gen Z, because they've got smaller budgets and they're kind of the demographic that's most passionate about sustainability. Is that what you're seeing in terms of who's buying and being interested?
Yeah, I can see why you'd think that, Joe, but it doesn't really pan out that way. I mean, we're pretty representative of the population at large. I mean, in the markets in Northern Europe that we serve 80% of households. As the market leader, so you'd expect us to not skew, and particularly towards one demographic. And we find there are plenty of older consumers, plenty of them, who care about the money in their pocket and care about the planet as well. It's not confined to Gen Z. No, we find these services are being adopted across the board.
Interesting. Are there particular, I don't know, marketing messages that work well as far as convincing somebody that a refurbished phone, let's say, is as good as one that's new out of the box?
Well, having it guaranteed by the manufacturer is a good start for everybody, and not everybody is an accredited refurbisher or repairer.
Congratulations on your recent Microsoft certification, by the way.
Thank you.
First in Europe,
yeah,
official
that's right. Yeah,
retail
we've worked hard to get trusted by people like Microsoft, Apple, Samsung, Google, Dyson, and many others to repair their product without any effect on your consumer rights or your warranty. And again, that's another source of differentiation for us. But you ask about the marketing messages.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, the central thing in all of our marketing is to put our colleagues at the center of it. And again, it's not just because I'm a nice guy, but it's because it's very hard in a business like ours for the experience of the customer to be better than that of the colleague, which is why we pay so much attention to colleague engagement and retention and reward and learning and development and everything else. And one of the perks for being a colleague at Currys is you might become a marketing star. So all of the colleagues wearing purple shirts you see in Currys ads are colleagues. They're who've auditioned and pitched to tell their stories, and we put them up in lights, and we're delighted to celebrate them. And a big part of what they talk about is services, not just the product provision.
That's great, and they're very fun ads too, I have to say.
Well, glad you like
them. Seen a few of them.
They make me giggle.
I think it's really cool that you built a Fortnite game too to kind of help make those younger customers more aware of kind of product life cycles and the idea that refurbished products are available.
Yeah, I mean, given how rubbish I am at gaming, that's the source of some amusement to my children. But yes, people better qualified than me in the business have done that.
Yeah, I wanted to circle back to your key partners, the Microsofts and Apples and Samsungs of the world. How do you balance selling more and more refurbished goods, which is great for you and great for the planet, with, I would guess, their imperative to want you to sell more of their new products as well?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a question of cannibalization for them and for us. And philosophically, if it's not too grand a term, we don't care about cannibalization at all. And we're very straight with our partners about that. We'd much rather that we cannibalized ourselves than somebody did it to us. So if we spotted a customer trend, a demand, that nobody's fulfilling that well and we think we can make money, we're going to go into it, even if it takes away from existing business, because somebody else will if we don't. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Online is a good example of that. We were less than 10% online a few years ago, and some of our store colleagues were worried about building a 50-50 stores online business. The cannibalization effect that would have on stores, as it did, but it was the right thing to do. Likewise here with refurb. Customers want it. You see this in every category, from fashion to automotive.
Sure.
People want the refurb product for pocket and planet. reasons, and we've got the wherewithal to make good money as well as do a good job of selling it. So that's what we'll do.
Great. Well, we've made it through 15 minutes on stage at Shop Talk without talking about artificial intelligence, which may be the longest any of you goes the next few days without talking about artificial intelligence. But I'm going to do it to you now because a couple of weeks ago you announced a partnership with Microsoft and Accenture to help you guys evaluate generative AI opportunities for Currys as a business. And I guess, there's lots of different things generative AI is good for: customer care, marketing messaging, just product descriptions. Are there particular aspects of Gen AI that you do see as being maybe more short-term impactful for Currys as a business?
Yes, I mean, this is going to change everything, ultimately. I mean, and ultimately is the important word there. I mean, this is effectively unmetered, super abundant intelligence, universally accessible for nearly for free at the margin. So it is going to change everything. The question is what and in what order and at what pace, and how do you change your business to do that? We kind of think of it. We think of it in a couple of ways. Firstly, selling it to customers, and second, changing our own business. So selling it to customers, on one level, it's a good opportunity to sell more mobile phones and laptops when things like the Samsung S24 have been sold like hotcakes, giving customers appetite for the translation. And of course, the big Microsoft launch of next-gen PCs coming up later this year that we're pretty excited about. So there's all sorts of consumer and small business use cases that we're pretty excited about. That's kind of one angle. But then there's how we change our own business. And here we've chosen our path, which I'd recommend, by the way, which is to be super focused about it and to follow the money. So we've partnered with people who know what they're doing, because we didn't, and Microsoft and Accenture definitely know what they're doing. Second, we've started quite broad and then narrowed it in a pretty disciplined way to one or maybe two use cases that we'll get after out of the gate. And we're about following the money. We're not about a sexy tech use case here. We've been really clear with our partners about that. We're about making some money. And the two big areas that we're going to focus on first is the after-sales customer experience, which is complex and cross-functional and can certainly improve. And second is selling to customers, particularly, but not only, online, and using a much more hyper-personalized recommendation engine, which Gen AI can provide. But it's important in all this hype, most of it justified, about Gen AI, not to forget about good bog standard old-fashioned AI like machine learning, which is already super helpful in everything from stock planning to merchandising to pricing, and it's going to continue being super helpful even as Gen AI gets all the headlines.
Yeah, it's so interesting to kind of think about the challenge that you have selling services digitally in the digital world, and AI is potentially very persuasive and friendly and knows you really well as a customer, and I think that's a really
one of the more startling
application.
things that we found in other categories like medicine is that many consumers find the Gen AI more empathetic, as well as more informative than the human version, which is I guess alarming as a citizen, but quite exciting commercially.
If we were in the States, I would make an unsurprised joke about the state of healthcare in America, but that's really interesting that I don't know, machines are getting better at us at some of this empathy stuff. So let's talk a little bit more about data and machine learning, though, because I do think that's another thread that will be woven throughout our time at Shop Talk Europe this year. How are you guys leveraging data around loyalty, let's say, or some of the other applications where you're seeing kind of a data-intensive approach really helping move the business forward?
Yeah, loyalty is interesting. I mean, and I mentioned the bearish analyst at the start who said that yours is a category that's very difficult to build meaningful loyalty into, being infrequently purchased and transparent and all the rest of it. It doesn't mean to say that we're not having a good go. I mean, I think there's a couple of different strands to this. First of all, when you talk about loyalty, lots of people default to talking about a loyalty club, and that's fine. That's one means of achieving the outcome of customers who spend more, come back sooner, and tell their friends, which is our definition of loyalty. But there are other levers of loyalty as well, and those are circumstantial. In our case, for example, I mentioned the fifth of our customers who buy stuff on our own credit account, and those customers are 71% likelier to come back and shop with us in the next 12 months than non-credit customers.
Interesting.
That's a stickier and more valuable customer relationship. The care and repair service, the 14 million customers in that I referred to earlier, those are customers who are significantly stickier, much likelier to give us their next purchase. We've just looked at this bunch of other services innovations that we probably won't have time to get into that will encourage the customer to roll onto the next product with you as well.
Nice.
And for a low monthly price, end up with computing on tap effectively. Again, you're building functional loyalty. Emotional loyalty, listen, I really hope that we can build Currys into a brand that people make a beeline for, but irrespective of the economics, irrespective of the functional trade-offs. But we're not counting on that. What we're counting on is making sure that those 80% of households who already shop with us give us a higher share of their wallet because it's in their interest to do so.
Nice. So the services are helping you build a business, build the planet, build a more loyal customer base as well.
That's the idea.
Down to about 10 seconds. In like 2 words, what are you excited about for the future of Currys?
Returning to growth. I know that's 3 words, but bear with me. I mean, the last few years, our market's been pretty stagnant, and we've had to work hard to build our profits and cash flow as we have through margin and cost and cash improvements largely. This is the year that we see opportunities to return to growth, both in terms of what we sell, the services, as well as the products, who we sell it to, small businesses, as well as consumers, how we sell it online and in-store and via loyalty, as we're talking about. And then finally, there's a whole new line of business which we're getting into and are pretty excited about as well, which is retail media, which is effectively becoming a source of advertising.
We'll have to have you back to talk about retail media in a year.
I'd love to.
So awesome. Alex, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.